Utica. Okay, August 29th, 9 a.m. This is a special session. Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, the first thing on the agenda is the small city allotment. Originally this year, at several meetings, they said that the cities could not have two full or two open small city grants. And evidently there was a lot of miscommunication. Some people dropped their 100,000 to get to 250,000. So when we couldn't change our grant, we stayed with our $100,000 one with the impression that we could not qualify for the one for 2023. On Wednesday, Dina Edgar from ODOT reached out and asked whether we had not completed our grant for 2023, and after some communication, she said, yes, we can apply for this, and this is a $250,000 grant. The hitch was, it has to be in by August 31st. So that's why we kind of ramped up, asked, this Charlie works with the guys, they, for the roads, they went through and found a couple roads, the worst road in town that needs to be fixed and needed to be fixed for years. And so that's what we're here for, is to look at the roads that we came up with, and then to get our paperwork done to see if we can get the $250,000. I think we were asking to pave Austin.
We're asking to pave Austin from the highway up around the corner past First Street, which is about a half a mile. And we're going to use the quote that we got this year from High Desert, because High Desert's the one that does it. They're supposedly going to put a plant in Baker at RD-Mac, because they already have one plant at RD-Mac in the Grand. So we're going to take that and use that, which that was like $99.99. So $100,000 there. We're just want to add more to it for the trucking for this coming year. Which, if you figure about 150,000, you should cover that. So then that gives us some more. And there's been new housing put in up at the RV park at Gold Rush, and those roads up there are terrible. Basically, we're looking at doing 2,500 linear feet of road on the map that Renee has provided. We're going to go from 12 feet wide to 24 feet wide, because we need to be able to get our grader up there to grade or something to remove snow with. And these roads are terrible. I mean, they're just full of potholes. It's not crowned. So this is where we figured that we would go up there. We called Triple C and got a rock price. I don't remember what that one was, but it is a whole lot more than RD-Mac did, because RD-Mac says that we can do it for, they'll deliver the rock 3/4 minus crushed for $30.85 a yard. And this is going to be a ballpark figure because that's this year, not next year. So that's what we're using to submit.
What's Triple C going higher?
Yeah, Triple C is quite
When I
a bit
did the
higher.
math, Triple C was at like $19,000 and RD-Mac was at 20 or 12,500-ish.
And that was when we first started out with 400 yards, and now we're up to like 5,000 yards. So it still comes out just under $50,000 for the gravel, the dirt. And then that gives us enough money to work with the guys to get it in. Once we get this started, and if we get this done, get the pavement in, get this part done, then what I'd like to see is make an amendment to this, because we should have a little money left over. And maybe go to the fairgrounds and go in front of Vern and put down a good gravel in front of Vern's where it's all real dusty. I want the name of, I guess I'd buy that.
What about,
But that would be an amendment. I don't want to put it in this because either way, we got to amend it, because if we don't have the money, then that gets left out. And if we do have the money, then we can add it in there.
what about, instead of doing that, doing what Martin proposed on, getting rid of that grass area for the parking and gravel and all of that? That would help Vern tremendously too. Cause
I don't know if you can or not, because this is a road, this is a road grant. This ain't property grant. So the thing is, though, if you did that main road that goes in by Vern, because that's a high deal, and also it's got potholes and stuff in it too, that holds water. So it would be nice to do that, but that would be an amendment we would have to do. And then the other thing that everybody needs to be aware of is if we should know probably in November, if we get this bid or this money, and if we get this money, this project has to be done by the 15th of August of next year, because otherwise we can't put in for another grant.
so do you,
So if you don't do it by next year, by this time next year, we won't.
Yeah, in order,
Because we gotta,
going forward, in order to continue.
Yeah,
because like I said, you gotta have enough, you can't be on the tail end of this, because we gotta get what we did signed off. So it needs to be done probably no later than the 15th of August. So this is something that, once we get the grant, we can set it all up so we can get it done.
And what if we don't get this grant, Carl, for this year, the one we're applying for now?
The one, if we, this one we're applying for right now, if we don't get it, then we don't get it.
we still have the.
We still have the 100,000 one that we're working on now.
Okay, and what, 100,000 one, what are we gonna do with that?
The $100,000 is gonna go up and we're gonna re-gravel First Street, because it needs gravel severely. Tim's already graded it out before we put dust base down. So we're gonna do it, and then we're gonna do, Climax, Clifford, and then we're coming up to Bonanza on that steep part, and we're gonna do it. Climax, we're gonna do the whole road, for gravel. However, we gotta go from Granite to Jeff and Daisy's property, because we need to make that wider so they have access to their property. Because right now, it's up on the hill,
We have to do that?
the city road.
Maybe a city road, but that doesn't mean we have to do
The city doesn't have to provide market.
it. The city doesn't have to improve it, no. Anyway,
Oh, yeah, how that was part of the grant, and then up there on Bonanza, it's that real steep section of Bonanza.
yeah,
We were going up, because the new people that are buying in there, they already have that side of the street surveyed, so we can pull off of those survey stakes to go wider. The grade of the street, because we have a start and a stop. So the grade of the street, I can't change that. Because the top of the road comes in here and the bottom of the road's down here, this is the angle.
so they've already graded that though, I think it was up there last week, somebody's fixed it, it's
I
a
think-
lot better than it was.
Yeah, because with these people buying on the side of that mountain, it's, and they're coming up in the wintertime, because soon as they come in from the Bob Chaffix and come down it, and they slide into their place, and then when they leave, they slide down the hill. Because you can't go back up the hill, it's too steep,
Well,
unless you're chained up.
I know they've graded or something now.
But I know that-
That's-
I know that the guys are complaining, our guys are complaining when they have to grade that because it's so rough.
it's not- Yeah, it's better.
So, like I said, we were gonna widen out Clifford, or in Climax, and that section there, and it's all done on the grant money. So.
Yeah, that's already.
And that's already done and signed off, and that's how come we're locked in.
So,
we're locked into climax. So
yeah, we're locked into, I didn't bring that
Yeah, we should be locked into everything that we submitted,
last year.
unless you want to amend something.
Okay, climax then goes up does it dead end at
Jeff and Daisy property, because the road above that's been vacated.
And then on the deal in Austin, you said the pavement from basically, I think Mill up to First Street or a little beyond.
The corner,
Right.
isn't it?
It's the corner because Noodle says that you don't want to end pavement in a corner and we really don't want to end it on an uphill pool. So basically you're going to go up past Diamondson to run that corner where it just flattens off. And that's where it's going to end. It comes out to about, just about a half a mile.
And what, is that how many lifts?
One lift is 2-inch lift,
2-inch lift and the width?
24 feet, 12 in and 12 out.
And Google says that generally does not work. That's what he's told me. If you had a 2-inch lifts.
If you want, if you want to put that in there, you can. I mean, when they get done, the guys that are doing the pavement, this is their recommendation because there's no heavy truck traffic. You have heavy truck traffic on it and it is agreeable then. It ain't heavy enough. But like I said, so if we did it the first go around, and this was my way of thinking, is if we don't have the money to where you can put a 4-inch lift in it, and we do 2 this year, and we get another grant for next year, and put another lift on. But we can work with them and see what they got to say, because we may be able to, my priority first is to do Austin, because it's the most heavily traveled road we got. And if we can get that paved, and if we put all of this money towards that, then we can get another grant to do this next year, because that's what we tried to do this year.
Well, maybe that's what we ought to do is put all the money towards this and have it done right. Tom Hanley says the only time a 2-inch will work is if you immediately start oiling it, like within a month or so after you put it down and continuously do that. Noodle himself says he will not put in a 1-lift road.
Okay, because like I said, these guys are the ones, they're the asphalt people, I'm not.
Well,
But I know that we're not gonna feather it out either. That's the other, that I do know. That what, we're not gonna feather it out. In other words, it stays 2 inches all the way to the edge.
And then
And then we'll backfill it with gravel.
right.
And roll it.
I,
To where I don't want it to taper off and go down there.
Right, and even at the edge, generally, it will start to crumble off unless you constantly maintain that.
Right.
Are we putting in any drainage structures?
The drainage, when these guys came through and looked at it, and we know for what we're getting ready to do, the drainage is there. The only thing that needs to be done is on that from Mill Street up, is if you go to the right side, right there, probably right by Tim, Karen Peters, the road drops off there, and it kind of does that all the way up. This is not a cut to the road, this is a fill to get it to flatten out, so we have the right.
By the right side, you mean north or south?
It would be south side of the road.
well, I'd rather have one project completed so that we never have to go back and address it again instead of having to address it again in a couple of years or have a problem.
So how does that work, Renee? If we just decide just to do the single lift, or I mean, just work on the Austin.
7 years. If you work on Austin, you have 7 years before you can work on Austin again.
No. What I'm asking is, if for the other roads that we put in for, did we still put in for those?
We haven't, I haven't had permission to submit anything.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying.
So
if
that's totally up to you guys. If you want to do that, then you're gonna have to get another bid from the asphalt company between now and Wednesday in order to be able to attach that bid to the application.
Which we don't have
So
time
does
for.
that double the price to storage?
Oh, I imagine, because basically you're paying for the asphalt, and right now, the oil is the cost. This is what makes the cost of the asphalt what it is.
Question, can you submit those others and tell them that Austin is our main priority? If we use all of the money on Austin, no one,
But we have to have a bid, that's the deal. But yeah,
yeah, and but not,
Then
but
it would
these are
just be-
reserved.
it would just be an amendment.
Yeah. those-
And you just, whoever is in here after is just going to, if all the money goes to Austin, then whoever it is that's in here is gonna have to file for an amendment. and say, this is where our money went, we don't have money for this, and amend the grant.
Okay, they can get us a bid. That's no problem because you double the cost of the asphalt. The prep work, you subtract that out because you don't need the same prep work for the second lift as you do on the first. And then there's the cost of the actual having a block or something there to put it down. So, you know, I think you could probably figure double for the second lift, maybe a little less.
Well, the thing is, those on this here, they did not give us a price on doing the base. That was gonna be up to us to do as a city, to do it for the pre-gravel.
Okay, so you double the asphalt.
So if you just double the asphalt, you're looking at 200,000
And,
plus the shipping.
well, and the cost of laying it. You don't lay a 4-inch lift in one lift.
Well, no, it would, if they can put in a 2-inch lift and they're doing it for $100,000, they can put in a 4-inch lift for $200,000.
They should.
You know, I mean, that's what it should be. Because, and once again, I don't think they were charging us to move in either, because they're right there. They're right there on 7.
Well, we ought to be able to get a bid. I mean, I think if you call them up, they could probably have us bid by this afternoon. I mean, this ain't rocket science.
We can call them and see what they got to say. But like I said, if we don't do this today, then we don't get this.
So what you're saying is you want to do Austin as a priority, that's our number one, to get that completed and done correctly. And then if there's any money left over, we would move on to that new street that goes up, has that horrible, it goes up.
Oh, no, going up into the RV park. RV park,
Is
I forget the name of the.
that new street?
Yes,
Yeah.
Main Street leads,
When it goes in, I mean, that's almost impassable during the winter, so if we are able to fix it, we should.
So, like I said, the streets that are up there, because there is 6 new homes up there and people are living up there now. So we do need to get it to where we can, the city hasn't plowed it forever in a day because everybody always, the city and the people who were there didn't get along, but the city should be plowing it. It is city streets.
It's really rough. I don't know how
And
they
it's
plow
really,
the
really
plow
rough.
they
And well,
put
it's-
it up there right now.
Right now, it's almost gone near impossible for Ken to go up and grade the roads because they're not wide enough. They're only 12 feet wide at best. There's a single lane road for a vehicle.
And that one-
Tim would have to use our grader and put the angle of the blade so small to shear it off. And then you're gonna be stacking snow on the edge and you'll get burned in.
Well, on your pictures here are the, burnt sienna. Is that what you're gonna improve, or is it yellow, or is it both?
Well, Renee did it as, to do this for me to do, so we knew how much out, the square footage that we're doing for gravel. So, like Park Street, where it comes up, it comes to Cupid, it stops, it goes on the other side of Cupid. That's how long Cupid is, because you can't go through Cupid because we're doing, or Cupid, but Park Street comes across it. So that intersection has to be accounted somehow, so we counted it as Cupid. So the white part on this one, which shows the 2 cross sections. So you should have these 4 right here, Martin.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so basically those are the short sections, and then we've got the long section, which is on another page. Because here's Ajax, it does the same thing. And then we have, oh, maybe she didn't put it in there. So anyways, are we doing Cupid? We're doing Cupid. Cupid all the way through up to where, we're not going clear to High Street, it's Fairview. You know, it stops right here by Fairview. Because part of this ordeal, Neil Bork, when he owned it, you see these little angle iron marks here. That's because they came in and they vacated that part of the road back in the day. Because Neil Bork put their houses too close to the road. So they had to vacate them so the property come out right.
And are there the appropriate survey monuments there so we don't go over into so much private ownership.
Yes,
We're all,
yes,
on both sides of all the
on both sides.
Can
So,
I say something? There's been several people who live on Austin that have talked to me and families, and they're kind of concerned about, they like the way the road is oiled now, and they're concerned about the pavement being a mess. And
Being a who?
a mess.
Or, well, you take the pavement that's in front of, that goes into the city park and put behind this.
No,
When we-
that's nice.
Well, the thing is, though,
Yeah.
when we blade it off, 99% of the time, unless we get snow, she's got pavement when everything else is froze over. So actually, in the wintertime, it would be better, I would think, and it shouldn't be a mess. I mean, it should look like a paved, brand new street.
They're just, yeah, there were
It's
several
concerning.
people that have talked to me, and I said, I don't know if they're doing it.
A mess, what are you talking, I guess the.
When they do the, tear up the road and put it in and everything.
Oh, it's good, the process is gonna be, it's gonna be yucky.
Yeah,
The thing is, though, other than right now, the way that it is, it'll probably look just like it does right now, other than next year, we gotta go through the winter. Except for up towards, like I said, there by, Tim and Karen, is where it's gonna start on the south side of the road.
right.
That has to be lifted and compacted, but other than that, the rest of the road, they could come in right now today and just put the asphalt down, because we have a good base.
how long is it gonna take them to start to finish?
2 days. If we do 2 lifts, it'll probably be, 3 days, but they gotta move in, they gotta do all their stuff, but
It'll take a week.
say 5 days.
But there's no mobilization charge.
This part, we don't know, because for this part, is because there was none, Martin, when because they were gonna move in from 7 to here. And then they were going from here up to Granite
But they never said yay or nay, did they?
on.
On mobilization.
We never asked. We just asked to see what the price was gonna be, to see if we could transfer this previous grant we had to do that.
So we have to ask
So
for a
basically, we have to, you got the mobilization, but there's a lot here that needs to be in consideration. First thing is you got mobilization, you have, an extra lift, you have trucking from Baker to here, and they're working on opening that, getting their plant set up down there. Part of this plant's gonna head that way when they're done. Because right now, there's no asphalt plant in the desert. But you're gonna have trucking added to that too. But when I talked to James from High Desert, he's saying that you should be able to add $25,000 to $30,000 for trucking. But that was only for 800 tons. Now you're looking at 1,600 tons.
Well, why do we need trucking? I thought they had everything.
No. That's this year. Next year is coming out of Baker. That's the reason why we pushed for this, because they're in the area right now, and it would have saved the city a lot,
So we're gonna try to do it this year and save the 50-some thousand for trucking, right?
We can't do it this year. They said no. That was our issue, is because we tried to transfer this grant from these other roads up here. And Noodle helped us do that, by saying, hey, you can tell these guys we can get a grant for the gravel next year, but this isn't a one-time opportunity, because these guys are in your area, but they won't let us transfer the grant.
So, okay, we're gonna put in for this grant, has to be put in by August 31st. When, and then if we get accepted, when can we start? When does it start? Next year, January?
Well, for us, it'd be,
As soon as we can get on it, because that's what I would have to set up.
But it will be
It's
2023.
2023.
And we
Because that's what
only
they
have
transfer.
until August to finish it of 2023.
If you want to put in for another grant the following year for 2024. Because now they're making it to where you have to close out one grant before you can get another. And this is the deadline. So this is the issue that the city runs up against, because now they will get these grants.
When did they change all
They just changed this.
Well, they
one just
changed,
recently.
yeah, they changed it this spring, and at the meetings, they said that you couldn't have two open grants. And this has been the confusion, and in the meetings that I went to, they said that, so a lot of it, because now you had $100,000 grants for this year, starting 2023, it was 250. So a lot of the smaller cities dropped their 100,000 and applied for the 250. Well, somewhere along this, their wording was not right, and that's why she reached out for us, because we can apply, it doesn't take effect until 2023 about the two open grants. So we can have our grant that we have right now, and we can apply for this one for next year, as long as we plan on getting them both done.
And both these grants have to be done by, like I said, I would say 15th of August, because we gotta get both of these grants signed off.
And then,
And that takes a little time, because they come out, they take pictures, they do their thing, and that's on their schedules, not ours. Because come the following year, you better have the new roads that you're gonna put in for. And have that
because
all listed out.
August of 2023, you have to have your grant signed off before you can do for 2024.
So if we do that, will we do anything this year on the roads?
Yes, we're working on a grant right now. Yes, the grader's back,
Yeah, I know.
so we're gonna get to work on those roads. Yes. We have an open grant right now, $100,000 open grant.
And I think at our last meeting that we had, I think that's when we gave Renee the permission, we voted on it to have her get the first 50,000 for that 100,000 coming, so we can get started. Because we gotta have Tony's tree service come up, take out some trees, and we've gotta, if we were going to improve those two roads, so we're gonna get an excavator and a dump truck. And then when the gravel gets here, once we start having gravel brought up, we'll get back the excavator and go away, and then we'll get a roller. And then that way we have a roller and the Tim can grade and.
You're talking renting.
Renting, not buying.
Yeah.
Can we use that? I know this is very important, but our water is real critical right now. McCully Creek's out of water pretty much. So we've got to go on restrictions. I didn't mean to change the subject, but that's what I stopped in for. We are severely low in McCully Creek. Its water's just barely getting on the screen deck to come to town.
You got Old Farrell Creek opened up.
It's on right now, yeah. But we're gonna have to go to complete restriction on watering lawns, immediately.
Well, what do you think about the street?
The streets,
Yeah.
you're the hands-on guy. Well, I guess, what we've got going is just to get those two roads, improved this year with rock and gravel and widened. And it sounds like all this paving, that's all next year's stuff, right? So, we can get those other two done, I'm sure, by fall, I would hope.
So, do we want to go ahead and apply for the $250,000 grant with asphalting Austin is the priority? And if there's money left to try to at least improve New Street so it can be plowed.
But the thing is, those,
We can put all these roads in there.
right, but the thing is, those, if we say that if we're using, because, well, I guess we do have a quote, but, or a bid, I should say. But the thing is, though, I was gonna say, we ought to put in there that it's subject to change because of the price of oil. And I don't care if you go get a quote today. Because if you get quoted today and you come back 2 months later, it's up or down because of the
More
price
than
of oil.
$250,000, we can't do it.
Well, no, we understand that.
I mean, that's the thing, are we going to apply for this with, first doing Austin and then what's left over do these streets that we've marked?
So if the quote gets higher and we're short on funds, it would cost more than the 250 just to pave the Austin where you guys want it. Pave as much as you possibly can. And then the next time around, we can continue on.
You mean pay Austin up past the post office as far as we can get 2 lifts and then do the rest next time?
Next time, go as far as you can and get a start on it, and then, you know, maybe the next year. I mean, they can feather it down to a point too, but go as far as you can, but to a reasonable stopping area.
But doing the
It's not ideal, no.
4 lifts or 2 lifts, I mean.
Four.
we got
Or do it
Or 2
correctly,
lifts.
start doing it correctly
Not
from the
4
start.
lifts, 4 inches big.
Well, one thing you can do, and I know it costs some, it wouldn't be very expensive, at the end of however far we get,
Mhm.
you can pour some kind of concrete abutment, butter up against that and then feather off that, so if traffic kicks the gravel out, the worst you have is a bump in the road
Mhm.
as compared to it crumbling off.
So how much did the state put it for? The state road in front of my house, it hasn't drove off at all. It has the,
No, that's just a 2-inch lift.
that's the 2 inch.
But like I said, it comes back to, that's why James from High Desert says that with it being a 2-inch lift, is like, they naturally like to see it thicker. But he says because we don't have the heavy truck traffic, he says it would hold for quite a while.
I tend to want to look further down the road.
And it does require much more intensive oiling than a 4-inch to preserve it. That's according to him.
So if we're gonna look at it from that aspect, that means even if we put the 4-inch in it, we still gotta oil it.
No, not as intensively. You're still gonna, anybody who has any asphalt road knows you gotta oil and chip seal every so often.
Right.
But Hanley says you gotta get right on it on a 2-inch lift or it'll crumble. And, didn't you build roads for Itcher?
No, I didn't, no.
Okay.
Just Forest Service roads up in the woods, that's all the road building I do.
Okay, so where are we gonna go forward on this?
Well, I hate to lose the 250,000, but we can go as far as we possibly can and do what Martin says on the concrete. If it's more expensive, I mean, everything keeps going up, but if it's 100,000 this year, we still have 150,000. I can't imagine in 1 year, it would not even less than 1 year, because we'd start on it next spring, but it would double that bad, where we'd be outpriced on doing that road.
The price of gasoline doubled just a little over a year.
Well, this is what they said about the oil, because this is the heaviest key. But the thing is, though, is if we put this, and I'm not sure how it works, but if we say that we're gonna do all of Austin, and we only do half of Austin.
Yeah, to amend.
Yeah,
So you have to amend it, but the thing is you use up all of that.
Yeah, but that's just the way it is.
But that-
I'd rather do it correctly to
Well,
start
I
with
think
than.
the thing is, though, other than the moving in and the trucking in it is, we know we can get halfway up it, so you can do a quarter of a mile. Double your money. So what they're gonna do a half a mile with nothing but the asphalt, 24 feet wide, a half mile long for 100,000. So if we go a quarter of a mile and for the $100,000, now you've got 4 inches, you have 4 inches of asphalt.
Some is better than none, at least it's getting it up there.
Especially
We've
around the
been
post
pro-
office.
Yeah.
We've been, promising these people that for, since
Ages.
post office moved in there.
No.
And that is one of the things that James did say, because where the post office is, that is part of the edge of the street, he would like to cut part of that back and then asphalt to it, because it's kind of in that drain and it's all broken up and cracked, and he doesn't want to really go to it. So it's either gotta be removed But that's the only apron that he was talking about putting in. He's not putting in aprons at the rest of the streets.
And, okay, so the city, if regardless of whether we go quarter mile or half mile, the city has certain obligations to perform. And those include, I assume, grading and filling in low spots, compaction, certain repair of certain drainage structures. What's that gonna cost us, and do we have the money to do that?
Well, that should be like the grant, is that working on the road?
That's working on the road, so we can use part of the grant for that. And like James says, from, let's just say from Ibex towards Mill Street, he says that road is very good. Tim should know that the drainage is good in it.
Yeah.
Off to the side,
It is.
you know, so we have good drainage and we have good road base, we have everything there. The only thing that I know that has to be done, we have to, as a city, we'll have to go in and make that abrupt edge where it meets Mill Street, the highway. Because you can't put that 4-inch lift up above the highway. It's
No.
gotta come back down.
They'll figure that out.
And
And I'm not sure, and that was one thing that I asked, and James said that they could do that. You know, because we can come in and they can cut that back because they know what they need. They've got the equipment, they got the stuff to make that abrupt edge. Because you don't want to make the abrupt edge before they get here.
but there's an area down there that always washes out every winter, that probably needs to be, you know, either dug out and filled with different kinds of gravel and then compacted before we do this, right at the intersection.
At that intersection, yeah, because there's a drain right there. And the problem is, the way that the road is right now, it's really crowned really high there. And then we get the ice build up.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing, because if you keep that busted off, and when I plow out for Linda and the state, I always try to carve that off. Tim's been doing good with this grader. Tim's been doing real good with it, but normally in the past years, I've seen that stupid thing 12 inches tall. Just solid ice. And then, yeah, we end up, like you say, Martin, then you don't get the runoff that we need for drainage, and then it washes out. But as of right now, though, they did put that drain in a couple of years, what was it, 4 years ago? I think is when they put that drain in there by Jeff's on that, we would be on the north side of Austin in that corner. And I think that runs into a culvert, doesn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, back to what we're gonna ask for. $250 with the grant, we're going to pave Austin,
4-inch.
4-inch. Or as far as our money will go, or are we gonna cut it off, are we gonna cut it off shorter?
What I would say, because of the time consistency of this thing, is I would say, if we pass this, to do that as a priority, we'll go as far as we can go and amend it. However, I think what we can do is I can call James and see if we can get a price like in an hour and let Renee know, because this needs to be submitted probably no later than tomorrow noon. And see if we can come up with a move in and a trucking fee.
Well,
Because doubling the asphalt, that's simple, we can all do that. Because like I said, there's no prep work for these guys. They're just gonna come and do it.
can't you just submit the grant to do as far as 4-inch lift on Austin, then all the work to be done on Austin? And if there's the remaining funds, make a second priority and do that, John.
Depending on the bid.
You have to
Depending
have
on
a
the
bid.
bid.
See, and that's the thing with us, is we don't have to have the bid for Tim to go out and Jeff to go out and grade roads and put the rock down and run rented equipment. We have that for what we're gonna pay for rented equipment, but the thing is, though, is the product and getting it here, that's the biggest issue, and that's what has to be bidded out. This here's an asphalt job, it's gotta be done the same way. And
It's still
if
gonna
we're
be
gonna-
subject to change next year on doing the gravel.
well, we understand that, but we'll have a bid as of today with that subject. That's why it's not a bid. That's why it's just well, I guess it is.
If you say go as far as our money will take us with the 2 lifts and something at the end to protect breaking off, you know, then it doesn't matter, I guess, unless we get ripped off. We assume it's gonna go what, to about Ibex? I don't know.
Quarter of a mile, probably end up going, I know it should go past Bonanza, pretty close. That would be about halfway if I had to guesstimate.
Yeah, might be a little less than half, I don't know.
Something like that. It's right now, it should be right, it should right there be in that block between Ibex and Bonanza. And if we wanna, if that's what we wanna do, Mark, because I know if we're looking at doing the project on the following year and we can go forward, then they normally bring the asphalt up and they stop it. And then they turn around and then they'll feather this off. And then when they get ready to do, there's already a score line here. They just take it and they rip the asphalt out, they start the mill and go on. But if it's something that's not going to do that, and when it's going to be a couple of years before we can do this again, then I agree with Martin. I think it needs to be a footing put there to support the asphalt from being broke off.
Well, and so what we would do is do Austin and nothing else, Austin to the tune of $100,000 this year. Right?
Next year, 2023.
2022 is already committed to what we're doing. This is what we're gonna do next year.
This is next year's grant,
2023.
2023.
But yeah, we're gonna go as far, do just Austin then for
And that's a
2023
priority.
grant.
Okay, and this year, forget about Austin, we're gonna do what?
That grant's gonna be used, like I said, we're gonna redo First Street, we're gonna do, Climax, we're gonna do Bonanza, and we're gonna do that one little short section of Grant. That's real narrow through there, we're gonna cut the trees out, so Tim got better access through there, and we're gonna gravel it. Most of the roads that we're doing this year is nothing but gravel, other than improving, the top end of Climax and the top and the bottom end of the mains on that steep grade.
Yeah,
That's all.
those are already locked in. Those are,
That's what it is.
what these guys need to work on. Now, the greater
It's,
stuff.
it's locked in
Yeah.
by,
By ODOT, we cannot change our mind.
Yeah, we tried to.
We tried.
The Austin, but they wouldn't let us
We tried
change.
and they would not let us change.
And we've already
So
voted.
that's
that.
why we're back to this one. We're gonna get more money and we're back to
Now we can say we're gonna pave off.
pave Austin for 2023.
And it's gonna, and it also that all hinges on if they look at the pictures that we've taken and they say, okay, yeah, it's granted that you can do this. Because they may look at it today because Austin right now looks really good.
Yeah, it does.
But
I
it's
mean,
so
it
high
really
traffic.
looks really good
But
right
it's
now.
so high traffic.
But it's so high traffic and it doesn't stay this way. And a lot of this is because we put the wheeling down after all of the rain.
Yeah.
So if they say no, that they don't want us to pay that, then we don't get that grant. To where I was hoping that between that and these roads here, they would give us the grant because we've got pictures of these roads also. Just-
And we don't have pictures of on that road after the thaw in the spring, how bad they look.
Yeah.
That's what they need to see.
Yeah.
So do we want to put the grant in as we are going to pave Austin? And then secondary, these other streets that we've taken pictures of, if there's money left over. Or are we gonna use $250,000 to pay?
Complete the first job first. and then
Well, that's what I
there's
mean,
money
but if
left.
there's leftover. are
The
we
way
gonna-
that I would do it is I would say that we want to pay Austin as much as we can. And like I said, as of right now, because we're together today, we need to make a motion to do that. And then I will call Jeff and see if I can get him to give us some sort of a written quote to Renee on what it's going to cost to do a 4-inch lift, or move in and trucking. Ballpark figure.
this is 2023.
Mhm.
For 2023. That has to be done by
Next
tomorrow.
spring, we'll see it next spring.
The yay or nay of this has to be done today.
And that doesn't mean we'll get the grant either.
No.
That just means we're applying.
We're
for it.
applying for it. So I make a motion that priority number one is Austin for paving a 4-inch lift. And, secondary roads will be up in Gold Rush RV Park.
Is there a second?
Yeah, full second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, and you're gonna get that done, you'll
I'll
call.
call Jeff, and if I can get a hold of him, I should be able to.
Could you let Renee know, and then she can send us the quote or an email,
Yeah.
and we have that.
Okay, just the other thing, new recorder wage. We did advertise for a new recorder. I talked to Rob a little bit. In the interim, he is going, he said, well, because Renee right now is entering things in QuickBooks Online and stuff. Rob will take that back when she leaves until we get somebody retrained. And I asked him about salary, and he said, depending on experience, he would recommend 15 to 21. And we also offer a benefit package. You know, it all depends on experience. So I need you guys to input.
And the advertisement says depends on experience.
Yeah, we did not, Rob suggested there's no wage amount in the ad, because he said that causes problems if you fixate on the high end, so. But we've had a few inquiries, so we need to decide where we want to be. It's a competitive time right now for jobs, so.
So we need to decide what they're gonna do, your starting wage, and then what happens after their 90-day probation.
I mean, we're looking at somebody that has no experience as a city clerk to come in. Obviously, they would be at the lower end, but if you have somebody that has experience and or has been a city clerk, where do you want to be? I mean, we just kind of need to know, because as you get applications, you're going to have to kind of decide and when we do interviews.
What are we paying now?
They just went up to Renee's at 20.
I haven't been a big sub yet.
I think it was
I think it was
21
20.
something.
Yeah.
21. And that was, Rob said, was about what they all are making.
About 2,000?
21 an hour, yeah.
Oh, $21.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's kind of where Rob, when I talked to him, when we were working on the handbook, that's, you know, the city clerk recorder slash for between 19 and I think there was one that was at 23. So I guess it's food for thought. I mean, we're going to have to decide. I mean, we do have an inquiry from somebody that is interested, but is asking what our wages are. And that's somebody with experience. And then I guess I'm just going to just give you more food for thought. I also talked to him about a city manager. Rob suggested this would be a good time if we were going to change to that structure. Because that would change the job of the city clerk. But he says, unfortunately, our budget for a city manager would be $30 an hour, which is low for them. So he said, you're looking at retirees, somebody that, you know, this isn't going to be their main job, it's a part-time job for them.
He's been, I know he mentioned, he's been working with several individuals, like for Huntington and some smaller communities. So everybody pitches in and has one city recorder that can work remotely or come into the office and just do part-time for each one of those. And so that was
City recorder or city manager?
city manager,
Or city
sorry,
manager.
that would work part-time because he's been working with Huntington and some of the other small towns to all pool in and utilize someone's expertise on that.
So
And that does make a big difference because they'll be in charge of all the grant writings and all of that. And then they'll be in charge of the office and then report to council and all that. So there's a big
And the thing is though, is,
plus for some of it.
well, the thing is though, is if you find somebody who wants, say, $40 an hour, and if Rob will stay doing, take back over the billing like he did before we had Renee, and if you get somebody that comes in as a city clerk and is not here full time, you know, because part of that, because then that pay would drop on their end, but at the same time, we could take that and add it to the city manager, right?
Because we did post 32 to 40 hours a week. Didn't that, 32, minimum 32 hours a week. Do we have time to even discuss that? She's here until a couple more weeks. How do you hire somebody and say, we're trying, you know, we're also working on getting a city manager. And if that happens, then you're gonna be dropping down and
Plus,
you're,
I mean, that's why I brought it up now.
Well, I think the thing we need
If
to
we're
do is
gonna do,
probably,
we need to go forward and decide we're gonna do a city manager.
if we decide to do it city manager, we should vote on that today so we can get it advertised.
But, I mean,
Yeah, but
Because
it's,
that's the first thing.
yeah, but it's specific. I mean, you're hunting for somebody who only wants to do it, you know, we're looking at very minimal part-time too. I mean, I think when I was even talking to Rob, he was thinking, you know, maybe a couple 4-hour days or, you know, one 8-hour day and then, you know, be available for questions, that type of part-time.
Mhm.
Not, you know, not 20 hours,
No,
not a 40-hour week.
Well, the thing is though, the city manager also, the thing you gotta look at too, is he doesn't have to be in the city. He doesn't have to be in the city to do what he does. Because he's, you know, searching for grants and doing grants and trying to find places for it to go, then you don't need to do that from in that office. You can do that from home or his office.
just a thought, you know, we discussed this
But the
before.
thing is, though, if we're gonna do that, then we need to get it advertised if we're gonna mix the two together at the same time. Correct?
Thoughts, Martin? You see your brains working.
I don't think a city manager will work in this town because I don't think the council will let him manage.
Why not?
I just don't. I see the way things operate here. I really don't think it works. Now, if we need a grant writer, that's something that might work.
We have a grant, we have somebody doing grants for us right now.
We do,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, we have Nick's doing, you know, taking care of our grants. You know.
Who?
Nick Dakota, he's been here at the meeting.
Oh, that guy, yeah, okay.
But the thing is, though, he's a grant writer, but he's not, he doesn't search for our grants, does he?
No, well.
Because Renee's the one that's been doing our research on some grant. And doing her reaching out to the people she knows that she has contact with.
Mhm.
Well, I just don't think the city manager that this council will let him manage. That's my feeling. I think if we had a grant writer that would take it from, you know, from the get-go and, seek out the grants, apply for them, and then administer them. That might be the way to go, and a lot of those get paid as a percentage.
Right,
And so it's no money up front for the city.
right. Yeah, I mean, like you say, we've been working with Nick, so. Okay, well, it's just an idea, but then it gets back to, what are we willing to pay somebody with experience to come in and be in our office? We have to have some kind of,
Well, they can go to, what is it, Bymark's now paying what, 15, 17? Yeah, it's a specialized job, that's the problem. You get, you know, you're looking at checking somebody out all day versus all the stuff they have to do in here and the knowledge and the record keeping and, but we can only afford what we can afford also.
that's true. And again, it all depends on experience too. You may get somebody in here that has really no city clerk experience.
So, yeah, we're getting, I know we got an inquire on what the wage is gonna be before they.
So basically what we need to do is set a top line for
No, entry level.
Entry level and.
entry level for the change.
Well,
You can't vote on this here now because you don't know what you're gonna get walk through that door.
so what you can just,
Somebody may walk through that door and they may be gun ho and everything else, but they have zero experience, but they got a real good learning range. So you start them out at $10 an hour. You know, that's what I'm saying. I'm just hypothetically just saying, you know,
Well, you
because
gotta
it's
come
something that you can work for.
you
But
gotta.
at the same time, you have somebody who walks through here, because I've had to deal with these people on the equipment side. They'll walk through the door and they tell you everything that they can do, and then you say, okay, well, let's find out what you can't do. And then you put them to work. And then the thing is, you hire them at a high end because of what's on paper. But theoretically, and the outcome of the whole thing is they don't know as much as the person did that came in here at $10.
Well, that's why you start out with the low wage depending on it and have a probationary period of 90 days. So you just start out with entry level when they walk in the door, it doesn't matter. Until probation is over and we see what you can do, you're not gonna go up to the next step.
Seems to me we've told them the range will pay them. Let's see what kind of people show up. We can always change that.
Okay. And I don't agree with you, Martin, in that if we did have a city manager, it would take a lot off everybody and it would work.
Well, that's your.
I know, we're both entitled to our opinion.
So what does the city manager do?
Well, I was gonna bring,
Other than the grants.
I was gonna bring a description, but I couldn't find it, so I have to go deeper.
And usually city managers or just that, they have the power to hire and fire, employees. They're the ones that go out and basically did what I just did, go out and find what roads need to be fixed, find the grant where it goes, plug it in, and make it all come together. And they come to council and present it to council to where that would take that off our plate, and the grant end of it would take it out of the office. Because they're the ones that come in and says, okay, I got a grant for this, we can put in for, and these are what we're gonna do, and they have the city all lined out. It would take somebody a year to get the city lined out on what avenues have to be prior, because that's like me right now, because both years, this got thrown to me, and it's always a deadline. We gotta meet this deadline if we're gonna do this. I can't see throwing away $100,000 grant. Let's do something so we can get it.
So-
It's not our money. Same thing with this $250,000 grant. Go out there, find the worst roads we got and start working from the worst roads to the better roads. Instead of starting down here where we already have some decent roads, let's get our worst roads taken care of. And that's the way I look at it. But a
Then
city grant
Austin's
would
not the
probably,
worst road.
and the city grant would probably, excuse me,
Yeah.
a city manager would manage all of this and present it to council in plenty of time.
Well, I have two really good descriptions at home, and I will send them all to you. I get my final folder.
So we need to vote on the new recorder starting wage, so it'd be what, for between 17 and 21, depending on experience, with a 90-day probationary period, and leave it pretty much basic.
Well, didn't somebody mention benefits?
And what
And
we
we
have,
get the end of health for them.
the healthcare.
In 90 days, a 90-day probationary.
And that's all adjustable.
I make that.
My second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I move we adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
I,
Opposed? Okay.
I do want to ask Tim, though, now that we're adjourned,
9:58.
we can't make a decision
Yeah.
on anything he brings to us. Tell us more about water and what we need to do.
We're with, Macaulay Creek has just dropped down the site in the last week. I've got pictures and we've barely got water going on the stream that feeds town. And I've got O'Farrell Creek adding